Cass Miller stood frozen in the doorway of the most luxurious bedroom he'd ever seen in his miserable life. His work boots, more holes than leather at this point, left small dirt prints on cream-colored carpet so thick it felt like walking on clouds. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Dallas skyline, the sunset painting everything gold and orange. A chandelier that anchored the room with the weight of a fortune hung from the cathedral ceiling. And there, in the center of a massive bed with silk sheets the color of champagne, lay a woman so beautiful she didn't look real. She wasn't moving. Hadn't moved in 2 years, according to the lawyers. Well, the sharp voice came from behind him. Cass turned to see Henderson, the head of household staff, a thin British man with silver hair and a permanent look of disgust whenever he glanced at Cass. "Are you going to stand there gawking all evening, or are you going to greet your wife?" Wife. The word hit Cass like a punch to the gut. Just 12 hours ago, he'd been sorting through trash bins behind the restaurants on Commerce Street, collecting aluminum cans to sell at the recycling center. His hands still smelled like garbage despite scrubbing them raw in the courthouse bathroom. Now he was standing in a penthouse in uptown Dallas, married to a woman who couldn't even know his name. Naomi Kensington, heiress to the Kensington luxury resort empire. 27 years old, in a coma since a mysterious accident 2 years ago. And as of this morning, his wife. Cass forced his feet to move closer to the bed. Each step felt wrong, like he was trespassing in a museum after hours. Naomi lay perfectly still, her breathing assisted by machines that beeped and hummed in rhythmic patterns. Even unconscious, even surrounded by medical equipment, she looked like royalty. Smooth, dark skin the color of expensive cognac. Her hair was tucked into neat, intricate cornrows that spiraled back from her forehead. The dark luster of her natural hair softened by a fine sheen of moisturizing oils. High cheekbones that could cut glass. Lips that probably smiled easy before whatever happened to put her in this bed. Cass looked down at his own hands. Calloused. Scarred. Permanently stained from years of hard labor and harder living. These hands had no business being anywhere near someone like her. "This is wrong," he whispered, his voice rough from disuse. "When you lived on the streets, you learned to stop talking. Nobody wanted to hear what homeless folks had to say anyway." "Wrong or right makes no difference now," Henderson said coldly, adjusting his already perfect tie. "You signed the contract. You accepted Mr. Kensington's offer. Your mother's surgery has already been scheduled for next week. The best oncologist in Texas, private room at Methodist Dallas Medical Center, everything paid in full. The bargain is struck, Mr. Miller. You are now Naomi Kensington's legal husband, whether you like it or not." Cass's massive hands, hands that used to catch footballs before his world fell apart, clenched into fists at his sides. He turned to face Henderson, all 6'4" of him, his broad shoulders filling out the cheap suit jacket they'd given him at the courthouse. And the jacket didn't fit right. Nothing in this new life fit right. "I didn't have a choice," Cass said, and even to his own ears, his voice sounded dangerous. Low, controlled, the kind of voice that made people step back. "My mom is dying. Stage 4 cancer. Your boss, Mr. Kensington, he said if I married his granddaughter, he'd pay for everything. Treatment, surgery, medicine, all of it. What was I supposed to do? Watch my mom waste away because I couldn't afford to save her?" Henderson's expression didn't change. If anything, his lips pressed into an even thinner line of disapproval. "Mr. Kensington is a very generous man. Excessively generous in your case. Do you have any idea how many young men would unalive?" He paused, correcting himself. "Would do anything for this opportunity? You're living in a $10 million penthouse, yet you have access to amenities most people only dream about. All you have to do is play the role of devoted husband until—" He trailed off, but Cass heard what he didn't say. "Until she passes away. The doctors gave her 6 months. Maybe less." Her body was shutting down slowly, systems failing one by one. After she was gone, Cass would receive his final payment, enough money to keep his mom comfortable for whatever time she had left, and he'd disappear back to whatever hole he'd crawled out of. "I don't want anything from this family," Cass said firmly. "I'm here for my mom, that's it. Soon as this is over, I'm gone." "How refreshingly simple you are," Henderson said, and it definitely wasn't a compliment. "Mr. Kensington expects you at dinner tonight, 7 o'clock sharp. The dining room is on the main floor. I've had some appropriate clothing placed in your room, the guest suite down the hall. You absolutely are not to sleep in here with Miss Kensington. You may visit during the day for appearances, but you have your own space. Do I make myself clear?" "Crystal," Cass muttered. "And Mr. Miller?" Henderson paused at the doorway, his pale eyes cold as winter. "Do try to at least pretend you belong here. Mr. Kensington may have some misguided faith in you, but the rest of this family certainly does not. Don't embarrass him. And for heaven's sake, do something about that hair before dinner." The door closed with a soft click that somehow sounded exactly like a prison cell locking. Cass was alone with his comatose wife. He stood there for a long moment, just breathing, trying to process the absolute insanity of his situation. Finally, and he pulled up a chair, some fancy thing that was probably an antique, and sat down heavily. The chair protested under his weight but held. "I'm sorry," he said quietly to the unconscious woman. "I'm so sorry you got stuck with someone like me. You deserve better than this. Better than some homeless trash picker who smells like yesterday's garbage no matter how many times he showers. But I promise you, I ain't gonna disrespect you. I ain't gonna touch nothing that ain't mine. I'm just gonna sit here sometimes, play the part your granddaddy needs me to play, and then I'll be out of your life. You won't even know I existed." Naomi Kensington didn't respond. Didn't even flutter an eyelash. But if Cass had been watching her heart monitor at that exact moment, if he'd known what to look for, he might have noticed the tiny spike in her heart rate. Because Naomi Kensington heard every single word. And she'd been awake, truly, completely awake and aware, for the past 3 weeks, listening, observing, and planning her revenge on everyone who'd betrayed her. Her body was still weak, still silent, but her mind had begun finding its way back long before anyone realized. Machines still breathed beside her. Nurses still fed her through tubes. To them, Naomi Kensington was a woman lost in sleep. But behind her closed eyes, she was watching everything. But how did Cass Miller end up in this impossible situation? How does a homeless man collecting cans on the street become the husband of one of Dallas's wealthiest heiresses? Let me take you back 3 weeks. So to a freezing November morning and a chance encounter that would change everything. 3 weeks earlier, Cass's back ached as he bent over another dumpster behind Marco's Steakhouse on McKinney Avenue. The smell didn't bother him anymore. You got used to it after 8 months of this life. What bothered him was the cold. November in Dallas wasn't supposed to be this brutal, but this year felt different. The wind cut through his 3 layers of clothes like they weren't even there. His shopping cart, stolen from an abandoned Walmart parking lot months ago, was already half full of aluminum cans and glass bottles. If he was lucky, really lucky, he'd get maybe $40 at the recycling center. That meant he could buy his mom's pain medication and still have enough left for a couple meals at the shelter. "Please, God," he muttered, on digging through garbage bags. "Just let today be good. Just let me find enough." His mom, Martha Miller, was dying in a charity ward at Parkland Hospital. The cancer had spread everywhere. The doctors said without aggressive treatment, she had maybe 2 months. With treatment? Maybe a year. Maybe more. Treatment cost $200,000. Cass had $417 to his name. He'd sold everything. His car, his clothes, the football scholarship ring from his 1 year at community college before he'd had to drop out to take care of his mom. Nothing was enough. Nothing was ever enough. His fingers closed around something in the trash. Not a can. Paper. He pulled it out, ready to toss it aside, when he noticed the letterhead, Kensington Global Resorts. Fancy gold lettering on heavy cream paper. Some kind of invitation to a charity gala. Cass almost laughed. Rich people threw away paper that was nicer than anything he owned. "Excuse me." The voice startled him so badly he nearly fell into the dumpster. Cass spun around to find a man standing behind him. Older gentleman, maybe 70, with dark brown skin gone gray at the temples, wearing a suit that represented more than Cass used to make in 6 months. He had sharp eyes, the kind that saw everything, and he was looking at Cass with an expression that wasn't quite pity and wasn't quite curiosity. "Sorry," Cass said automatically, stepping away from the dumpster. "I'm just collecting recyclables. I'm not stealing nothing. I'll move along." "No need to apologize," the man said, his voice cultured and calm. I was actually hoping to speak with you." Cass's guard went up immediately. Nothing good ever came from rich people wanting to speak with homeless folks. Usually it was some church group trying to save his soul, or worse, someone looking for cheap labor they could exploit. "I don't want no trouble," Cass said carefully. "Neither do I." The man extended his hand. "My name is Lawrence Kensington, and I have a proposition for you." Cass stared at the outstretched hand. Clean, manicured. A gold ring that looked heavy enough to be an actual investment. Slowly, aware of how dirty his own hands were, Cass shook it. Lawrence Kensington's grip was firm, strong, the handshake of a man used to being in control. "Mr. Miller, isn't it?" Lawrence said. "Cass Miller, formerly of South Dallas. Played linebacker at Carter High School. On full scholarship to Tarrant County College before you had to withdraw to care for your ailing mother." Cass went cold. "How do you know all that?" "I make it my business to know things," Lawrence said simply. "Especially when I'm considering offering someone a life-changing opportunity." "I don't want no drugs," Cass said flatly. "And I ain't doing nothing illegal." "Nothing illegal," Lawrence assured him. "In fact, quite the opposite. I'm offering you a legitimate business arrangement, one that would benefit us both greatly." Cass's stomach growled loudly enough that Lawrence definitely heard it. Embarrassment burned through him, but he kept his chin up. "What kind of arrangement?" Lawrence glanced around the alley, at the dumpsters, the trash, the broken bottles, and seemed to come to a decision. "Not here. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks north. Let me buy you breakfast, and I'll explain everything." Every instinct Cass had screamed that this was a trap. Rich men didn't just offer homeless people breakfast and opportunities, but something in Lawrence Kensington's eyes looked genuine, tired, maybe even desperate. And Cass was starving. "All right," he said slowly, "but I gotta bring my cart." "Of course." 30 minutes later, Cass sat in a booth at Ellen's Southern Kitchen, trying not to inhale the plate of food in front of him too fast. Scrambled eggs, bacon, grits, toast, orange juice, coffee, more food than he'd seen in one place in weeks. Lawrence Kensington sat across from him, sipping black coffee and watching Cass eat with an unreadable expression. "When's the last time you had a proper meal?" Lawrence asked quietly. Cass paused, a forkful of eggs halfway to his mouth. "Does it matter?" "Humor me." 4 days ago, Shelter served chicken soup." Lawrence's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I see." They sat in silence while Cass finished eating. He forced himself to slow down, to chew properly, to not make himself sick. But God, it was hard. His body was screaming for more, more, more. Finally, Lawrence set down his coffee cup and folded his hands on the table. "My granddaughter is dying," he said bluntly. Cass blinked. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Her name is Naomi. She's 27 years old. 2 years ago, she was in a car accident. Since then, she's been in a coma. The doctors say her body is failing. She has perhaps 6 months left." Lawrence's voice was steady, but Cass could hear the pain underneath. I need her to be married before she passes." Cass set down his fork. Why? Because of my will, Lawrence said. The Kensington fortune, hotels, resorts, investments worth over $3 billion, which was built over the years by myself and my daughter, Naomi's mother. Naomi's mother wasn't just my daughter, he said quietly. She was my partner. She helped me build this empire when it was nothing but risk and sleepless nights. When she passed away, she signed every share she owned over to Naomi. But if she passes unmarried, everything goes to my nephew, Dominic Kensington. A man I wouldn't trust to run a lemonade stand, let alone my life's work. So get her married to someone, Cass said, confused about where this was going. Some business partner or something? I would. If I could trust anyone in my circle, Lawrence said bitterly. But I can't. Everyone around me has an angle. Everyone wants a piece of the empire. I need someone who wants nothing from me. Someone who can't be corrupted by wealth because they've never had it. Someone who just needs help with one specific thing, and then will walk away clean. The pieces clicked together in Cass's mind like tumblers in a lock. You want me to marry your granddaughter, he said slowly. Yes. Your granddaughter who's in a coma. Yes. And in exchange? Lawrence pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and turned it to face Cass. On the screen was a medical file. Cass saw his mom's name, saw the diagnosis, saw a treatment plan that made his heart stop. In exchange, Lawrence said quietly, I pay for your mother's complete cancer treatment. It's the best doctors, the best facility, everything she needs for as long as she needs it, plus a salary of $10,000 a month while you're married to Naomi, plus a final payment of $500,000 when it's over. Cass couldn't breathe. That's more money than you've ever imagined, Lawrence finished. Yes. All you have to do is marry Naomi, live in the penthouse, play the role of devoted husband for however long she has left. Visit her room, sit with her, let people see you care. When she passes, you sign a few papers, take your money, and disappear. Simple. Why me? Cass asked, his voice barely a whisper. There's gotta be 1,000 guys you could hire for this. Lawrence studied him for a long moment. You know what I saw when I watched you this morning? I saw a man who sorted garbage with dignity, who spoke kindly to the restaurant workers who brought out the trash, who apologized for taking up space in an alley. Most people in your position become bitter, angry, cruel. But you, he shook his head. You're still kind, still decent. That's rare. That's valuable. I ain't nothing special, Cass said roughly. No, Lawrence agreed. You're extraordinary. You just don't know it yet. He pushed a business card across the table. Think about it. Call me by tomorrow. Your mother doesn't have much time, Mr. Miller. Neither does my granddaughter. Cass didn't think about it. There was nothing to think about. That afternoon, he took the bus to Parkland Hospital, used the last of his change for the fare, and went up to the charity ward where his mom lay in a bed that was more cot than anything else. She was asleep when he arrived, her breathing shallow and labored even with oxygen. Martha Miller had been beautiful once. Cass remembered her dancing around their tiny apartment when he was little, singing along to Aretha Franklin, her laugh filling every corner. Now she was so thin he could see every bone in her face. Her skin had taken on a grayish tone. Her hair, once thick and glorious, had fallen out in patches from the cheap chemotherapy the county provided. She was 52 years old. She looked 80. Hey, Mom, Cass whispered, taking her hand carefully. Her fingers felt like bird bones, fragile enough to snap. It's me. No, it's Zeke. Her eyes fluttered open. It took her a moment to focus, but when she did, her whole face lit up despite the pain. Baby boy. How you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, she said, her voice thin and raspy. But she smiled. His mom always smiled for him. But I'm still here, still fighting. Cass's throat closed up. He couldn't speak. "What's wrong?" Loretta asked immediately, her mother radar still working despite everything. "What happened?" "Nothing, He squeezed her hand gently. "I love you, Mom. You know that, right?" "Course I know that, baby." Her eyes searched his face. "You're worrying me. What's going on?" Cass pulled out Lawrence Kensington's business card. He'd been carrying it in his pocket all day, feeling the weight of it like it was made of lead instead of paper. Someone offered me a job," he said carefully. "A real good job. Pays enough to get you help. Real help. The kind that could save your life." Loretta's expression shifted immediately. "What kind of job?" "Doesn't matter. It's legal. It's safe. It's just complicated." Cass Miller. His mom struggled to sit up more, and Cass rushed to help her. "You look me in the eye and tell me what this job is." So he did. He told her everything. The marriage, the coma, the money, the deal. When he finished, Loretta was quiet for a long time. Then she shook her head firmly. "No. Mom, I said no." Her voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. "I ain't gonna let you sell yourself like that for me. I ain't gonna let you marry some stranger, play pretend in some rich folks' game, just to keep my old bones alive a little longer. It ain't like that." "It's exactly like that," Loretta said, tears forming in her eyes. "Baby, I'm dying. That's just the truth. And I made my peace with it. But I ain't made peace with watching you sacrifice your dignity, your future, your chance at real love someday, just to buy me a few more months." "A few more months with you is worth everything," Cass said fiercely. "You're all I got, Mom. You're the only person in this whole world who ever gave a damn about me. I ain't losing you. Not when I can do something about it." "Cass, I already decided," he said, standing up. "I'm calling him tonight. I'm taking the deal. And Mom, I need you to let me do this. Please." Loretta looked at her son. This beautiful, a gentle man she'd raised all by herself, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You're too good for this world," she whispered. "You always have been." Cass kissed her forehead. "I learned it from you." That night, from a payphone outside a 7-Eleven, Cass called Lawrence Kensington. "I'll do it," he said when Lawrence answered. "I'll marry your granddaughter, but I got conditions." "Name them." "My mom gets the treatment right away, soon as possible. And I want to be able to visit her whenever I need to. I don't care about living in no penthouse or wearing fancy clothes or none of that. But my mom is non-negotiable." "Done," Lawrence said immediately. "The lawyers will draw up the contract tomorrow. We can have the ceremony this week. Welcome to the family, Mr. Miller." The line went dead. Cass stood there in the cold Dallas night, holding a dead phone, wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. If you think Cass just made the biggest mistake of his life, drop a comment and let me know. And listen, you better hit that subscribe button right now because what happens next is going to blow your mind. This story is just getting started, and trust me when I say Naomi Kensington is about to turn Cass's whole world upside down. Ring that notification bell because you do not want to miss what happens next. The wedding ceremony happened 3 days later in a cold courthouse with fluorescent lights that hummed too loud. Cass wore a suit that Lawrence's people had bought him. Charcoal gray, fitted to his large frame, actual leather shoes instead of the boots he'd worn for the past year. They'd even taken him to a barber who'd shaped up his afro, trimmed his goatee, made him look almost respectable. He barely recognized himself in the mirror. There were no guests, no family, just Cass, Lawrence, a lawyer named Harrison who looked like he'd never smiled in his life, and a judge who seemed deeply uncomfortable with the whole situation. Naomi, of course, wasn't there. The judge kept glancing at the empty space where the bride should have been standing. "Mr. Kensington, I have to say, this is highly irregular. I've never performed a marriage where one party wasn't present." "Everything is legal," Harrison the lawyer said smoothly, pushing papers across the desk. "We have medical power of attorney. We have documentation of Miss Kensington's condition. Texas law allows for proxy marriages under specific circumstances, and this qualifies. I've included precedents going back 30 years. The judge looked at Cass. Son, do you understand what you're agreeing to? Yes, sir, Cass said quietly. This is a legally binding marriage, real as any other. Do you enter into this of your own free will? Cass thought about his mom, already checked into Methodist Dallas Medical Center, already being prepped for surgery that would happen tomorrow. Thought about her face when he'd told her the doctor said she had a real chance now. Thought about how she'd cried and held him and told him she was so sorry he had to do this for her. Yes, sir, he repeated. Of my own free will. The judge sighed. All right then. By the power vested in me by the state of Texas, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. Miller, you may go see your bride, I suppose? And just like that, Cass Miller became a married man, to a woman he'd never met, who couldn't even know his name. Which brings us back to that first evening, standing in Naomi's bedroom, trying to process the absolute insanity of his new life. After Henderson left him alone with his unconscious wife, Cass sat in that fancy chair for almost an hour, just watching Naomi breathe. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. The sun finished setting outside the massive windows. The room grew darker. I don't know if you can hear me, Cass said quietly. The doctors say probably not. Say you're too far gone. But just in case, I'm Cass. I'm your husband now. Ain't that wild? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I promise I'm gonna be respectful, he continued. I ain't gonna touch nothing that ain't mine. I'm just gonna sit here sometimes, talk to you maybe, make sure you're all right. Your granddaddy seems like he really loves you. He's doing all this to protect you, I think. To make sure the wrong people don't get control of your money when you... He couldn't finish that sentence. Anyway, I just wanted you to know I ain't here to hurt you or disrespect you. I'm just here because my mom's dying and I'd do anything to save her. Even marry a stranger. Naomi's face remained peaceful, unchanged. Cass stood up, bones aching from the longest day of his life. I'm gonna go find my room now. Get ready for this dinner thing. But I'll come back tomorrow. Check on you. That cool? No response. Of course not. Cass made his way to the guest suite Henderson had mentioned. It was down the hall, and when he opened the door, he almost laughed again. The room was bigger than the entire apartment he'd grown up in. King-sized bed with a mountain of pillows. A attached bathroom with a shower that had 6 different shower heads. A walk-in closet already filled with clothes in his size. Jeans, slacks, shirts, jackets, everything. There was even a note on the dresser in elegant handwriting. Mr. Miller. Please select appropriate attire for dinner. Business casual will suffice. Dinner is at 7 p.m. sharp in the main dining room. Do not be late. Carlton Cass looked at the clock. 6:30. He took the fastest shower of his life. Though he spent a good 5 minutes just standing under the hot water, marveling at water pressure that didn't sputter and die. And dressed in dark jeans and a button-down shirt that actually fit. The clothes felt strange. Too clean. Too nice. Like he was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Because he was. At exactly 7 o'clock, Cass found the dining room. It was on the main floor of the penthouse, and it was ridiculous. A table that could seat 20 people. More crystal chandeliers. Actual paintings on the walls. Not prints, but real art that would have taken him 3 lifetimes of manual labor to afford. Lawrence Kensington sat at the head of the table, looking tired but pleased when Cass entered. Cass, he said warmly. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality. Please sit. Cass took a seat, feeling massively out of place. I hope Henderson showed you to your room. Everything satisfactory? More than satisfactory, sir, Cass said honestly. It's too much. Nonsense, you're family now. You'll have the best of everything. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Cass turned to see another man entering the dining room, and everything in him went on high alert. And the man was probably early 30s, light brown skin, designer clothes, perfect hair, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked at Cass the way you might look at something stuck to the bottom of your shoe. "Uncle Lawrence?" the man said smoothly. "I came as soon as I heard the news. Is it true? You actually went through with this insane plan?" "Dominic," Lawrence said, his voice cooling several degrees. "I wasn't aware you were invited to dinner." "I'm family," Dominic said, taking a seat across from Cass without being asked. "I don't need an invitation. Besides, I wanted to meet the man who married my dear cousin Naomi. This must be him, the homeless charity case you plucked off the street." Cass's hands clenched under the table, but he kept his face neutral. "Cass Miller," Lawrence said tightly. "This is my nephew. Dominic Kensington. Dominic, show some respect." "Respect?" Dominic laughed. "Uncle Vincent, you married our family's heiress to a man who was literally digging through trash 3 days ago. And you want me to show respect?" "That's enough," Lawrence said sharply. But Dominic was on a roll now, leaning forward, his smile getting meaner. "Tell me, Cass, can I call you Cass? Or maybe, hey you, trash picker?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Tell me, how much did my uncle pay you to play house with a vegetable? Must be a lot to get you to shower regularly." Cass stood up slowly. All 6'4" of him. All 230 pounds of pure muscle earned from years of hard labor. He didn't say a word, just stood there, looking down at Dominic with an expression that made the other man's smile falter. "Sit down." "Ah, Cass," Lawrence said quietly. "Dominic is leaving." "I'm not going anywhere," Dominic protested. "This is my family's house, too." "This is my house," Lawrence interrupted, his voice like iron. "And you are not welcome here. Get out." Dominic stood up, his face flushing with anger. "You're making a huge mistake, Uncle. This whole thing is a mistake. Naomi is never waking up. She's been gone for 2 years, and when she finally passes, I will contest this farce of a marriage in court. I will expose this fraud." He jabbed a finger at Cass. "For what he is, and I will take what's rightfully mine." "The only thing you'll get is escorted out by security," Lawrence said, pulling out his phone. "Last chance to leave with dignity, Dominic." Dominic's jaw clenched. He looked at Cass with pure hatred. "Enjoy it while it lasts, trash picker. Because when Naomi is gone, you're going right back to the gutter where you belong." He stormed out. The dining room fell silent except for the sound of Cass's heavy breathing. "I apologize," Lawrence said after a moment. "Dominic is complicated. He's always resented Naomi, always wanted control of the company. This marriage thwarted his plans, and he's not handling it well." Cass sat back down slowly. "He called her a vegetable." "Yes, that's his own cousin, and he called her a vegetable." "Dominic only sees people as assets or obstacles," Lawrence said sadly. "Naomi was always an obstacle to what he wanted, even now." A staff member entered with covered dishes, and they ate in uncomfortable silence. The food was incredible. Steak that melted in Cass's mouth, vegetables he couldn't name, and some kind of potato thing that was creamy and perfect. But he barely tasted any of it. He kept thinking about Dominic's face, about the hatred in it, about the very real possibility that this man might try to hurt Naomi. "Mr. Kensington," Cass said carefully, setting down his fork. "That man, Dominic, is Naomi safe from him?" Lawrence looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if he wants her gone so bad, is she safe?" Lawrence's expression darkened. "Security is very tight. Henderson monitors everything. Dominic cannot get to her without permission." "But he wants to." "Yes," Lawrence admitted quietly. "I believe he does." They finished dinner in silence. Later that night, Cass returned to Naomi's room. He knew he should go to his own suite, get some sleep, but something pulled him back to her bedside. Like she looked exactly the same. Peaceful, still, beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. "Your cousin came to dinner," Cass told her, settling into the chair beside her bed. "He's a piece of work. Called you names I ain't gonna repeat. Your granddaddy kicked him out, but I got a feeling that ain't the last we'll see of him." The machines beeped their steady rhythm. "I'ma take care of you," Cass said softly. "I know that sounds stupid, me taking care of you. What am I gonna do, right? But I promise, long as I'm here, ain't nobody gonna hurt you. Not Dominic. Not nobody. You got my word on that." He sat there for another hour, just keeping her company, talking about nothing, about his mom, about the street, about how weird it was to sleep in a bed with actual sheets. Finally, exhausted, he stood to leave. That's when he saw it. Naomi's right hand, her index finger, it twitched, just the smallest movement, barely noticeable. But Cass saw it. He froze, staring at her hand. "Did you just— No, that's crazy. That was just a muscle spasm or something." He watched for another minute. Nothing. "I'm losing my mind," he muttered, heading for the door. "Seeing things that ain't there." But as he closed the door behind him, he didn't see what happened in that room. Didn't see Naomi Kensington's eyes flutter open. Didn't see the small smile that crossed her face. And definitely didn't see her whisper. So quietly, the machines almost drowned it out. Finally, someone interesting. Naomi is awake, and she's been listening this whole time. What is she planning? What's Dominic really up to? And is Cass in way more danger than he realizes? Drop a comment right now and tell me, do you think Naomi is going to expose Cass, or is she going to use him for her own plans? And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because the next part is going to be wild. We've got romance brewing, danger lurking, and secrets that are about to explode. Cass woke up at 5 in the morning out of pure habit. For 8 months, he'd gotten up before sunrise to hit the streets early, before other people claimed the best dumpsters. Your body didn't forget routines like that just because you were suddenly sleeping in a bed that worth more than a car. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling in his guest suite, still not quite believing this was real. The silk sheets, the temperature-controlled room, the complete and total silence. No sirens, no shouting. No sounds of the city that never really slept. It felt wrong. Too quiet. Too comfortable. Too much like he was pretending to be someone he wasn't. Which, he supposed, he was. Cass rolled out of bed and padded to the bathroom. Even after 3 days in this place, he still couldn't get over the luxury. The shower had heated floors. Heated floors. Who needed their bathroom floor to be warm? Rich people, apparently. He showered quickly, dressed in jeans and a plain black t-shirt from the closet full of clothes that had magically appeared in his size, and made his way through the silent penthouse. Henderson had told him the kitchen was on the main floor, and that he was welcome to help himself to whatever he needed. The kitchen was bigger than some restaurants Cass had worked in before his life fell apart. Stainless steel everything. A fridge that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. Cabinets that probably held more food than he'd eaten in the past year combined. Cass opened the fridge, half expecting it to be empty despite what Henderson said. Instead, he found it fully stocked. Eggs, milk, fresh fruit, vegetables, meat, juice. Everything a person could want. His hands shook slightly as he pulled out eggs and butter. When was the last time he'd cooked actual food? When was the last time he'd had access to a real kitchen? He made himself scrambled eggs and toast, moving carefully, quietly, like he was afraid someone would come in and tell him he wasn't allowed to touch anything. The food tasted incredible. But then again, as everything tasted incredible when you'd been living on whatever the shelter served, and the occasional drive-through burger when you could scrape together enough change. "You're up early." Cass spun around so fast he nearly dropped his plate. Lawrence Kensington stood in the kitchen doorway, wearing a burgundy silk robe and slippers, looking far less intimidating than he had in his suits. He looked his age this morning, 74, tired, the weight of his empire visible in the lines around his eyes. "I'm sorry, sir," Cass said immediately. "I didn't mean to wake you, I just—" "Relax, son," Lawrence said, waving a hand. "This is your home now. You can eat breakfast at 5 in the morning if you want. I'm an early riser myself. Old habit from my Navy days." He moved to the coffee maker, started it with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Can't sleep?" "Not really," Cass admitted. "Feels weird, all this quiet." "I imagine the streets were quite loud." "Yeah." Cass shifted his weight. "Mr. Kensington, can I ask you something?" "Lawrence, please. We're family now, and ask away." "Why me? Really?" Cass set his plate down on the marble counter. "You could have hired some actor, some business associates, someone who actually knows how to act like they belong in a place like this. Why pull a homeless guy off the street?" Lawrence poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Cass, and gestured to the breakfast bar. They both sat. "You know what I did before I built my empire?" Lawrence asked. "I was a cook in the Navy, worked my way up from nothing. When I got out, I had $200 and a dream. I worked 3 jobs, slept in my car more times than I can count, ate 1 meal a day so I could save money. It took me 20 years to build Kensington Global from a single motel in Austin to what it is today." Cass sipped his coffee, listening. "Everyone around me now?" Lawrence continued. "They were born into wealth. They've never struggled. They've never had to choose between eating and keeping the lights on. They don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand what it means to give up everything for the people you love." He looked at Cass with those sharp, knowing eyes. "But you do. You were willing to marry a stranger, to live a lie, to give up your freedom, all to save your mother. That's real love, real sacrifice. And that's the kind of character I want protecting my granddaughter's legacy." "I ain't protecting nothing," Cass said quietly. "I'm just playing a part." "Are you?" Lawrence asked. "Because from what Henderson told me, you spent 2 hours in Naomi's room last night, talking to her, telling her about your day. That's not playing a part, son. That's being human." Cass looked down at his coffee. "She can't hear me anyway." "Maybe not. But you do it anyway. That says something about who you are." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lawrence checked his watch and stood. "I have an early meeting downtown. But Cass, your mother's surgery is scheduled for this afternoon at 2. I took the liberty of arranging a car to take you to the hospital. You should be there when she wakes up." Cass's throat closed up. "Thank you, sir. Eat, Lawrence, thank you." Lawrence clapped him on the shoulder. "Take care of your mother. That's what matters. Everything else, the pretending, the role-playing, all of it, that can wait. Family comes first. Always." Methodist Dallas Medical Center was nothing like the charity ward where Cass's mom had been wasting away. This was a private wing with actual rooms, not curtained-off sections. Nurses who smiled and spoke gently. Equipment that looked new instead of held together with prayers and duct tape. Cass sat in the surgical waiting room, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. The surgery was supposed to take 4 hours. They were removing the tumors, starting aggressive treatment, doing everything the doctors at Parkland had said was impossible without money. Money Cass now had access to, because he'd married a woman in a coma, and the absurdity of it hit him all over again. "Mr. Miller?" Cass jumped up. A surgeon in blue scrubs stood there, pulling off her mask, and she was smiling. "Your mother did beautifully," the surgeon said. "We were able to remove the primary tumor and 3 of the 4 secondary sites. The last one we'll need to address with targeted radiation, but overall, this went better than we hoped. She's in recovery now. You can see her in about an hour." Cass's knees nearly gave out. "She's okay?" "She's stable. She has a long road ahead. Recovery, radiation, chemotherapy. But Mr. Miller, your mother has a real chance now. A good chance." Cass couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but nod as tears burned behind his eyes. "Thank you." he finally managed. Thank you so much. When Cass finally got to see his mom, she was pale and groggy from anesthesia, but alive. So beautifully, wonderfully alive. Hey, Mom, he whispered, taking her hand carefully. There were fewer tubes this time, fewer machines. She looked fragile, but not like she was dying anymore. Martha's eyes opened slowly. It took her a moment to focus, but when she did, she smiled that smile that had gotten Cass through every hard moment of his life. Baby boy, she said, her voice rough. You look good. Real good. They feeding you? Leave it to his mom to be worried about him when she was the one who just had major surgery. Yeah, Mom, they feeding me real good. He squeezed her hand gently. How you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, backed over and hit again, she said, but she was still smiling. But I'm here. The doctor said it went well. It did. It went real well. Martha studied his face with a mother's eyes that saw everything. You settling in okay? In that big house? It's weird, Cass admitted. Really weird, but I'm managing. And the girl, Naomi? She's… Cass paused, trying to find the right words. She's beautiful, Mom. Even like that, even sleeping, she's just… I don't know. There's something about her. I find myself talking to her, telling her things. It's stupid because she can't hear me, but maybe she can, Martha interrupted gently. Maybe somewhere deep down she knows someone's there, someone who cares. I don't care about her, Cass said automatically. I mean, I care that she's safe and comfortable and all that, but I don't know her, can't know her. Martha gave him that look, that mom look that said she knew he was lying to himself. Baby, you got the biggest heart of anyone I ever met, she said softly. You can't help but care. It's who you are. Don't fight it. That girl, even if she never wakes up, she's lucky to have you watching over her. Cass stayed at the hospital until visiting hours ended. By the time he got back to the penthouse, it was almost 9 at night. The place was quiet. Henderson had left for the evening, Lawrence was at some business dinner, and the medical staff who monitored Naomi worked in shifts, staying mostly in their own section of the penthouse. Cass should have gone to his room, should have slept. But instead, he found himself walking down the hall to Naomi's bedroom. The evening nurse, a kind older woman named Patricia, looked up when he entered. Mr. Miller, she said warmly. She was one of the few staff members who didn't treat him like garbage. Come to visit? If that's okay. Of course it's okay. You're her husband. She stood, gathering her tablet and bag. I'm actually just finishing my shift. Night nurse will be here in 20 minutes. You'll be all right alone with her until then? Cass nodded. After Patricia left, Cass settled into his usual chair beside the bed. Naomi looked the same as always. Peaceful, beautiful, untouchable. The machines beeped their familiar rhythm. Hey, Cass said quietly. It's me again. Hope you don't mind me talking at you. I know you can't hear me, but I don't know. Makes me feel less alone, I guess. He told her about his mom's surgery, about how scared he'd been, about how relieved he was that it went well. He talked about the penthouse, and about how weird it was to have a closet full of clothes that actually fit, about how he still felt like an imposter in his own skin. I saw your sketchbooks today, Cass said after a while. They were on the shelf in the library. Henderson said it was okay to look around, so I did. You're real talented, you know that? Those building designs, they're beautiful, elegant, functional. I used to study architecture back before… He trailed off. Anyway, I didn't know rich people actually had hobbies besides counting their money. No offense. He stood up, walked to the window. The Dallas skyline glittered below them, millions of lights in the darkness. You probably had everything, Cass continued. Money, education, opportunities. Must have been nice, never having to worry about where your next meal was coming from. Never having to choose between eating and keeping the lights on. He turned back to look at her. But you know what? I don't think all that money made you happy. I've been looking at pictures of you around the house. In most of them, you're smiling, but it doesn't reach your eyes. Like you're playing a part, same as me. He sat back down in the chair. I wonder what you were really like, he said softly. Before the accident. I bet you were tough. Had to be to survive in a family like this. Your granddaddy loves you something fierce, I can tell that much. But your cousin Trevor? That man's got poison in his heart. And I'm guessing the rest of the family ain't much better if Lawrence had to go to these extremes to protect you. Cass reached out slowly, carefully, and touched Naomi's hand. Just the lightest contact. Her skin was warm, soft, human, not the cold, untouchable thing he'd half expected. I'm gonna take care of you, he said. I know that's weird coming from me. I can't even take care of myself most days. But while I'm here, however long that is, I promise you're safe. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Not Dominic. Not nobody. You got my word on that. The machines beeped. Naomi didn't respond. Cass sat there until the night nurse arrived, then retreated to his own room. He didn't see the way Naomi's heart rate had increased slightly when he touched her hand. Didn't see the almost imperceptible smile that crossed her face when he made his promise. Because Naomi Kensington had been awake for weeks now, and she'd never heard anything quite like Cass Miller. Inside Naomi's mind, behind her closed eyes and still face, everything was chaos. She'd been pretending to still be in a coma for 4 weeks. 4 entire weeks of lying perfectly still, controlling her breathing, keeping her heartbeat steady, while she listened and learned and planned her revenge on everyone who'd betrayed her. It had been Dominic who tried to eliminate her. She knew that now. Knew it with absolute certainty because 4 weeks ago, the day she finally regained consciousness, was the same day she realized her life was a lie. She'd heard him talking to someone on the phone in her room, thinking she couldn't hear him. The stupid girl just won't pass away. It's been 2 years. How much longer do I have to wait? The doctor said she'd be gone by now. Her own cousin. Her own blood. He'd tampered with her brakes 2 years ago. He'd caused the accident that put her here. And he'd been waiting impatiently for her to finish dying so he could take everything she'd worked for. But then grandfather had done something unexpected. He'd married her off to some random man off the street. Naomi had been furious at first, listening to the conversations around her bed, learning about this arrangement. Another man trying to use her. Another gold digger. Another person who saw her as nothing but a meal ticket. Except Cass Miller wasn't like that at all. He was different. Impossibly different. He visited her every day, sometimes twice a day, and just talked. About his mother, about his life, about how weird everything felt. He never asked her for anything, never touched her inappropriately, never treated her like an object or an obstacle. He treated her like a person, like someone who mattered. And when he'd promised to protect her tonight, when he'd touched her hand so gently, like she was something precious instead of something broken, Naomi's carefully maintained composure had nearly shattered. Get it together, she told herself firmly. He's part of grandfather's plan. He's being paid to be here. This isn't real. None of this is real. But God, his voice was beautiful. Deep and rough, with a slight Texas drawl he probably didn't even notice. And the things he said, they weren't rehearsed or calculated. They were honest, raw, real. When was the last time anyone had been real with her? Focus, Naomi commanded herself. You're awake for a reason, to gather information, to find proof of Dominic's betrayal, to take back everything he tried to steal. You don't have time to develop feelings for your fake husband. No matter how kind he was, no matter how his presence made her feel less alone for the first time in weeks, no matter how much she wanted to open her eyes and actually see him instead of just hearing his voice. Soon, she promised herself. Soon, you'll wake up. But not yet. Not until you have a solid plan to destroy Dominic completely. The next 2 weeks fell into a strange routine. Every morning, Cass woke early, made breakfast in the kitchen he still couldn't quite believe he had access to, and spent an hour in the library reading. Lawrence had an incredible collection of architecture books, and Cass found himself falling back in love with the subject he'd abandoned years ago. Sometimes he read to her. He'd found a collection of romance novels on the bookshelf in her room, dog-eared paperbacks with cracked spines, clearly well-loved. The nurse mentioned Naomi used to read them before the accident, that her grandmother would bring her new ones every month. So Cass picked one up. Surrender to the Highland Storm. The cover featured a shirtless man with improbable muscles clutching a woman whose dress was losing a valiant battle against gravity. He settled into the chair beside her bed, propped his feet on the lower rail the way he'd started doing around day 4, and cracked it open. All right, Naomi. Chapter 14. He cleared his throat. Fiona pressed her back against the cold stone wall of the castle, her bosom heaving with... He stopped, pinched the bridge of his nose. Her bosom was heaving, Naomi. Heaving, like it's trying to escape. Somebody check on that woman's bosom, it is in distress. He kept reading. Duncan crossed the great hall in 3 powerful strides, his kilt swirling around his... Cass lowered the book and stared at the ceiling. 3 strides across a great hall. You know how big a great hall is? This man got a 40-foot inseam. He's basically a giraffe in a skirt. Naomi's stomach tightened. She kept her breathing steady through sheer force of will. Cass found his place again. I told you to leave this place, Fiona whispered. It is too dangerous. Duncan cupped her face in his calloused hands. I would walk through hellfire for one taste of your lips, lass. Cass sucked his teeth. Hellfire, for a taste. Brother, just ask her to dinner. Take her to Applebee's. Why has everything got to be hellfire and declarations? You just met this woman in chapter 3. He flipped the page. His mouth claimed hers with a hunger that... Okay, claimed. His mouth claimed hers, like he planted a flag on it, like her lips are the Louisiana Purchase. He shifted in the chair, shaking his head slowly. And she's just letting this happen? Against a cold wall? In a drafty castle? Ma'am, you are going to get a UTI and a backache, and Duncan the giraffe is not going to be around for that part, I promise you. The heart monitor blipped. Just barely, just once. A fraction faster than the steady rhythm. Cass didn't notice. He was too busy frowning at the next paragraph. Fiona felt herself melting into him, her resolve crumbling like the ancient ruins of... He closed the book on his thumb and looked over at Naomi's still face. You actually like this stuff? For real? He waited, as if half expecting an answer. Then he shrugged and opened it back up. No judgment. Well, some judgment, but I'll keep reading. He settled deeper into the chair. Take me, Fiona breathed. Take me now, Duncan, before the dawn. Cass held the book at arm's length like it had personally offended him. Before the dawn. It's the middle of the night. They're in a freezing castle. There's apparently a war happening outside, and these two are just... He gestured vaguely. You know what? Fine. Fine. Get it, Fiona. I hope Duncan's giraffe legs keep you warm. Beneath the thin hospital blanket, Naomi bit the inside of her cheek so hard she almost drew blood. Cass read 3 more chapters that night. He complained about every single one. He came back the next evening with the bookmark already in place. Other times, he just talked. He told her about everything. His childhood in a cramped apartment with too many cousins and not enough beds. His year at college on a football scholarship, the first in his family to go. The knee injury that ended it all. The slow, terrible slide into homelessness. The 8 months on the street that had felt like 8 years. I used to be ashamed, he told her one evening, about 2 weeks into his new life. Ashamed of where I ended up. Like it was my fault somehow. Like if I'd just been stronger or smarter or better, I could have avoided all this. But you know what I figured out? Life doesn't care how strong you are. It'll knock you down anyway. What matters is whether you get back up. He was looking out the window when he said it, so he didn't see Naomi's fingers twitch. Art, my mom's getting better, he continued. The treatment is working. The doctors say if things keep going this way, she could have years. Real years, not just months. And that's because of you. Because of this arrangement. So, thank you, I guess. I know you didn't choose this, didn't choose me, but thank you anyway. Silence except for the machines. Cass turned back to look at her. I wish I could have met you before, when you were awake. I bet you were something else. Your granddaddy says you were going to run the company. Says you're brilliant, tough, didn't take nothing from nobody. He smiled sadly. Bet you wouldn't have looked twice at someone like me. If he'd been watching closely, he might have seen Naomi's eyelids flutter ever so slightly. But he wasn't watching. He was lost in his own thoughts. I should let you rest, he said, standing up. He leaned down for a brief moment and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. Night nurse is going to be here soon anyway. Sleep well, Naomi. I'll see you tomorrow. He left. And the moment the door closed behind him, Naomi's eyes opened. She stared at the ceiling, her heart racing despite the medications meant to keep everything stable. Her chest felt tight. Her throat burned with emotions she couldn't name. You're wrong, she thought fiercely. You're so wrong, Cass Miller. I would have looked, I would have seen you, because you're the first real person I've met in years. She wished she had opened her eyes, just for a moment, to see his face. So curious to know the man who had quietly taken up space in her thoughts. But Naomi wasn't the only one paying attention to Cass. Dominic Kensington in his luxury apartment in downtown Dallas, drinking expensive whiskey and scrolling through the private investigator's report on his phone. Cass Miller, 28 years old, formerly homeless, no criminal record, no education beyond 1 year of community college, no money, no connections, no threat. Except he was a threat, because as long as Cass was married to Naomi, Dominic couldn't touch the inheritance, couldn't touch the company, couldn't touch anything. And worse, Uncle Lawrence actually seemed to like the trash picker, was actually treating him like family. It was unbearable. Dominic poured another drink, his hand shaking slightly with rage. He'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let some nobody ruin everything. He pulled up another contact on his phone, a man he'd used before, and a man who specialized in making problems disappear. The call connected. It's me, Dominic said quietly. I need you to look into someone, Cass Miller. I need to know if there's any way to remove him from the equation. Permanently, if necessary. The voice on the other end asked a question. I don't care how much it costs, Dominic said. Just get it done. That man is standing between me and everything I've worked for. He has to go. Things are about to get dangerous. Naomi is awake and listening. Dominic is plotting something terrible, and Cass has no idea he's in the crosshairs. You better hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell because the final part is going to be absolutely wild. We've got secrets being revealed, danger closing in, and a romance that's about to explode. Don't miss it. 3 days later, Cass made a decision that would change everything. I want to bring my mom here, he told Lawrence over breakfast. Just for a visit. She's doing better, but she's still weak. I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe she could meet Naomi. Even if Naomi can't respond, my mom could see I'm being treated well, that I'm okay. Lawrence studied him over his coffee cup. You care what your mother thinks of this arrangement. I care that she doesn't feel guilty, Cass said honestly. She thinks this whole thing is her fault, that I'm suffering because of her. I want her to see I'm not suffering, that I'm... He gestured around at the luxury surrounding them. That I'm doing all right. Of course, Lawrence said immediately. Bring her this weekend. Saturday afternoon? I'll arrange for the car to pick her up from the hospital and bring her here. Thank you, sir. Lawrence? Saturday came, and Cass was more nervous than he'd been in years. He cleaned his room, even though housekeeping did that daily, and made sure Naomi's room looked perfect. Fresh flowers, clean sheets, everything just right. When his mom arrived, supported by a nurse but walking on her own, Cass felt his chest tighten with emotion. She looked so much better. Thin still and obviously ill, but alive. Fighting. Winning. "Baby boy," Martha said, smiling wide when she saw him. "Look at you. You clean up real nice." "Hey, Mom." Cass hugged her carefully, afraid of hurting her. "How you feeling? Strong enough to leave that hospital room for a few hours?" She looked around the penthouse, her eyes going wide. "Lord have mercy. Like this is where you've been living?" "Yeah." "Baby, this is—" She shook her head, overwhelmed. "This is something else." Cass gave her a tour, watching her reaction to everything. The library, the kitchen, the view. She took it all in with wonder and no small amount of discomfort. Like him, she wasn't used to this level of wealth. Finally, he brought her to Naomi's room. Martha went quiet when she saw the still figure in the bed. She moved closer slowly, her nurse staying in the doorway to give them privacy. "So this is her," Martha said softly. "This is Naomi." "Yeah, she's beautiful." "She is." Martha reached out and gently touched Naomi's hand, the same way Cass did every night. "Baby girl, my name is Martha. I'm Cass's mom. I just wanted to come by and say thank you. Thank you for giving my boy a safe place. And thank you for the opportunity to get treatment. And—" her voice broke slightly. "And I'm so sorry you're going through this. So sorry you're missing out on your own life. But I want you to know, my son is a good man, the best man I know, and he's gonna take care of you. He promised me he would." Cass's throat closed up. Martha turned to him, tears in her eyes. "You love her, don't you?" "Mom, I don't even know her." "You love her," Martha repeated firmly. "I can see it on your face, baby. The way you look at her, the way you talk about her. You love this girl." "She can't love me back," Cass said roughly. "She ain't even awake." "Love doesn't need permission," Martha said gently. "And it doesn't need reciprocation to be real. You love her. That's okay. That's beautiful even." In the bed, behind closed eyes, Naomi's heart was racing. She heard every word. Heard Martha, this kind, dying woman, thank her. Heard Cass's mother said he loved her. Heard him not deny it, just say she couldn't love him back. "But I could," Naomi thought desperately. "I could love you back. I think maybe I already do. How is that possible? How can I love someone I've never actually met?" But she knew the answer. Because Cass had talked to her every day for 3 weeks. Had shared his heart, his fears, his dreams. Had promised to protect her. Had treated her with more respect and tenderness than anyone in her entire privileged life. She knew him. Maybe better than she'd ever known anyone. "Wake up," a voice in her head urged. "Just open your eyes. Right now. Meet him for real. Stop hiding." But another voice, the practical, strategic voice that had kept her alive this long, said, "Not yet. Dominic is still out there. You still don't have proof. If you wake up now, before you're ready, you could lose everything." So Naomi stayed still, stayed silent, even though every fiber of her being wanted to open her eyes and look at the man who'd somehow captured her heart while she was pretending to be unconscious. After Martha left, Cass returned to Naomi's room alone. The night nurse hadn't arrived yet. They were alone. He sat in his usual chair, but something felt different tonight. Heavier, more real. "My mom thinks I love you," he said quietly. "Ain't that wild? How can you love someone you've never really met? Someone who can't even hear you?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "But maybe she's right. Maybe I do love you. Or maybe I just love who I think you are. The person I've built up in my head from your granddaddy's stories and your sketchbooks and the pictures around the house. He stood up, paced to the window, paced back. I think about you waking up sometimes, he admitted. I know the doctors say it probably won't happen, but I think about it anyway. And I wonder what you'd think of me. Would you be angry that your granddaddy married you off to some stranger? Would you hate me for taking advantage of your situation? Or would you understand I was just trying to save my mom? He sat back down, ran his hands over his face. If you could wake up, he said softly, if you could just open your eyes for 1 minute and talk to me, you know what I'd want to tell you? I'd want to say I'm sorry. Sorry you're going through this. Oh, sorry your family's so messed up that your granddaddy had to resort to marrying you to a homeless guy to protect you. Sorry your cousin's a piece of trash who only sees you as an obstacle. And I'd want to say... He paused, struggling with the words. I'd want to say that somewhere in all this craziness, I found something I didn't expect. I found someone worth protecting, someone worth caring about. And if you gave me half a chance, I think I could make you happy. I think we could be something real, not just this fake arrangement. Cass reached out and took Naomi's hand gently. But you can't wake up, he said. And even if you could, why would someone like you want someone like me? I got nothing to offer. No money, no education, no future beyond whatever your granddaddy decides to give me when this is all over. He trailed off. I'm just some guy who loves you, that's all I got. He raised her hand to his lip, kissed the knuckles so tenderly, and Naomi lost it. Her fingers tightened around his. Cass froze. He stared down at their joined hands. Did you just... Naomi's fingers squeezed his hand again, deliberately, unmistakably. Cass's heart stopped. Naomi? His voice came out as barely a whisper. Can you hear me? Slowly, like it took every ounce of strength she had, Naomi's eyes opened. Amber brown eyes, sharp, intelligent, awake, fully, completely awake. She looked directly at him, and she smiled. Hi, husband, Naomi said, her voice rough from disuse but clear, so beautifully clear. Took you long enough? Cass shot to his feet so fast his chair fell over backward. When? About a month ago, Naomi said, slowly pushing herself up to a sitting position. Her movements were careful but controlled. This wasn't someone just waking from a coma. This was someone who'd been awake and aware for weeks. I've been listening to everything, every conversation, every promise, every late-night talk where you poured your heart out. The implications hit Cass like a truck. You heard everything? Everything, Naomi confirmed. She reached up and pulled the monitoring leads off her chest, silencing the machines. I heard you promise to protect me. Heard you talk about your mother. Heard you say you love me. Her eyes locked onto his. And I heard you say you think we could be something real. Cass couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Why didn't you say something? Why pretend? Because I needed to know who I could trust, Naomi said simply. 2 years ago, someone tried to eliminate me. Someone in my own family. I've been waiting, listening, gathering information to figure out who. And then you showed up. This stranger my grandfather married me to. And I thought you were just another player in the game. I'm not... I know, Naomi interrupted gently. That's what I figured out. You're not playing any game, Cass Miller. You're just... real. Genuine. The first honest person I've encountered in longer than I can remember. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, tested her weight. Water, she said quietly, her voice hoarse. Cass moved quickly, fetching a bottle of water from the mini-fridge every room in this mansion had. As she drank, her mind was already racing, planning her next moves. She stood up on shaky legs, but stood. And yes, before you ask, I can walk. I've been doing physical therapy when the night nurse isn't here, building my strength back, getting ready. Ready for what? Naomi's smile turned dangerous. Ready to take back everything Dominic tried to steal from me. Okay, that just happened. Naomi is not only awake, she's been awake this whole time. She heard Cass's confession. She knows he loves her. And now she's ready to fight back against Dominic. Drop a comment right now and tell me. Are you Team Naomi and Cass? Because these two are about to shake up Dallas high society like you wouldn't believe. For a long moment, Cass just stared at Naomi Kensington, his wife, who was supposed to be in a coma, who was now standing in front of him with fire in her eyes and strength in her stance. And he couldn't form a single coherent thought. She was real. She was awake. She was looking at him like he was someone worth looking at. You gonna say something? Naomi asked, and despite the roughness in her voice from weeks of minimal use, there was amusement there. Or are you just gonna stand there staring at me like I grew a second head? How? Cass shook his head, trying to organize his thoughts. You've been awake for a month? Give or take, Naomi said, taking a few careful steps. Her legs were stronger than he'd expected, but he could see the slight tremor in her muscles. The coma was real at first. After the accident, they kept me under medically for about 6 months while the swelling in my brain went down. And then I was genuinely unconscious for another 1.5 years. But I woke up about 5 weeks ago. And you didn't tell nobody? Anyone, Naomi corrected automatically, then winced. Sorry, force of habit. My grandfather raised me to speak properly. She made air quotes around the word. And no, I didn't tell anyone because the first conversation I heard when I woke up was my dear cousin Dominic standing in this very room, on the phone, complaining about how I was taking too long to pass away. Cass felt ice slide down his spine. He said that? Word for word. Naomi's expression hardened. He also mentioned being tired of waiting and needing to explore other options if I didn't cooperate by dying soon. That's when I realized the accident wasn't an accident. Dominic tried to eliminate me 2 years ago. Austin, he was getting impatient, waiting for the job to finish itself. Jesus, Cass breathed. Does your granddaddy know? Not yet. I don't have proof. Just Dominic's word on a phone call, and he's too smart to have said anything incriminating enough to use in court. Naomi moved to the window, looked out at the Dallas skyline with an expression Cass couldn't quite read. So I stayed asleep, listened, learned, waited for Dominic to slip up and give me something concrete. That's why Lawrence married you to me, Cass said slowly, pieces clicking together. He suspected Dominic. He needed to protect your inheritance until you either woke up or passed away, Naomi finished quietly. Yes, my grandfather is many things, but stupid isn't one of them. He knew something was wrong. Knew Dominic was circling like a vulture. Like the marriage was his way of buying time and protecting the company. She turned to face him. What he didn't count on was finding someone like you. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Naomi said, taking a step closer to him, that my grandfather has spent his entire life surrounded by people who want something from him. Money, power, access, status. Everyone has an angle. Everyone's playing a game. Another step. But you really did just want to save your mother. You really did sit here night after night, talking to someone you thought couldn't hear you, treating me with more respect and kindness than anyone in my entire privileged life ever has. Cass backed up until he hit the wall, his chest rising faster, his eyes drinking her in. She was tall, but still a head shorter than him. And now that she was standing, now that she wasn't buried under hospital sheets and blankets, he could see her properly for the first time. The curve of her shoulders, the shape of her. All the right swells, all the right curves, like someone had sculpted her specifically to make him forget how to breathe. He tried to keep his eyes on her face. Why is Fiona's bosom from the stupid romance novel ringing in my head right now? Naomi kept coming until she was standing right in front of him, so close he could see the golden flecks shining in her amber eyes. So close he could smell something soft, vanilla maybe, or honey, beneath the sterile hospital scent. She was real. She was awake. She was looking at him like she already knew him. His hand twitched at his side. He wanted to touch her, feel if she was solid. If this wasn't some fever dream, he'd wake up from any second. Instead, he pinched the inside of his wrist. Hard. Nope. Real. Naomi studied him just as intently. He was even more handsome than she'd imagined during all those hours of listening to his voice. Brown skin that caught the light like warm bronze. Bright eyes. Expressive, kind, a little wild right now with shock. Strong jaw, full lips slightly parted. She'd built a picture of him in her mind over the past weeks, but the reality was more. Much more. So this is my husband. The thought sent a strange thrill down her spine. Cass suddenly became aware of how close they were standing. And then, like a truck hitting him, he remembered everything he'd said when he thought she couldn't hear. The complaints about Duncan the giraffe, the rants about heaving bosoms, like the Louisiana Purchase comment, the story about crying during a dog food commercial when he was 12, the detailed explanation of why he thought pineapple on pizza was a war crime. Oh no. Oh no. Heat crept up his neck and flooded his face. You... His voice came out strangled. How long did you say you've been awake? Naomi felt a small, private smile tug at her lips. His embarrassment was endearing. More than endearing. Long enough, she said softly. Cass groaned and briefly covered his face with one hand. The romance novels? Every chapter. The part where I said Duncan needed to take Fiona to Applebee's? My personal favorite. He dropped his hand, looking at her with something between mortification and reluctant laughter. You just let me keep going? You didn't think to, I don't know, move or something? And miss your commentary? Her eyes sparkled. Never. They stood there, barely a foot apart, neither willing to step back. The air between them felt charged, electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. Cass's fingers flexed at his side. He wanted to reach out, wanted to trace the line of her jaw, see if her skin was as soft as it looked. But he kept his hands to himself, painfully aware that this was the first time they'd ever actually spoken. Naomi felt the same pull. She wanted to touch him, press her palm against his chest, feel his heartbeat, confirm that this man who had sat beside her bed for weeks and made her laugh silently into her pillow was real and solid and hers. But it was too soon. They both knew it. So they just looked. And looked. And the looking felt like enough for now. Then Naomi's legs wobbled, 2 weeks of atrophied muscles finally giving out, and she pitched forward. Cass moved without thinking. His arms slid around her waist, catching her against his chest as if she weighed nothing at all. She was warm and solid and real, and for a moment neither of them breathed. Naomi's hands had landed on his shoulders to steady herself. She didn't move them. Instead, she leaned into him, her eyes finding his, sparkling with amusement and something deeper, something that made his pulse stutter. I got you, Cass said, his voice rougher than he intended. I know, she whispered. Gently, carefully, he lifted her and carried her back to the bed, setting her down like she was made of something precious. But he didn't pull away. Couldn't. He stayed close, one hand still resting on the mattress beside her hip, and their faces inches apart. The electricity between them was almost unbearable. Naomi looked up at him, her amber eyes searching his face. When she spoke, her voice was soft. You told me you loved me. Did you mean it? Cass felt his stomach drop. You weren't supposed to hear that. But I did. She held his gaze, unflinching. So, did you mean it? He looked at this woman. Beautiful, brilliant, fierce. and knew he could lie, could protect himself, could play it safe the way he'd learned to do on the streets, where vulnerability got you hurt. Instead, he told the truth. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I meant it. I know it's crazy. I know I don't really know you. But I fell in love with who I thought you were, who I hoped you were. And now that you're awake, now that I can see you for real." He swallowed hard. "Ah, you're even more than I imagined. So yeah, I love you, even though I got no right to. Even though you're gonna realize aren't worth your time." Naomi smiled. Actually smiled, bright and genuine, and it transformed her entire face. Softened the sharpness, lit up her eyes, made her look like sunlight given form. "Cass Cross," she said, "you're an idiot." Before he could respond, before he could process that, Naomi reached up, curled her fingers around the back of his neck, and then stopped. "Wait," she said, pulling back with a grimace. "I want to kiss you. I really want to kiss you. But I've been lying in this bed for 2 years, and I haven't brushed my teeth since before the pandemic started." Cass stared at her for a beat. Then he laughed, a surprised, genuine sound that seemed to startle them both. "Woman, I spent 8 months eating out of dumpsters," he said. "You think I care about—" "This isn't morning breath, Cass. This is archaeological breath. Scientists could study this. There should be a documentary." "Naomi, I'm serious. The Geneva Convention probably has something to say about—" Cass cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing gently across her cheekbones. "I have been talking to you every night for weeks," he said quietly. "Falling in love with a woman I thought couldn't hear me. And now you're awake, you're here, and you think I care about toothpaste?" From a basic hygiene standpoint. He shut her up with a kiss. The kiss was soft, gentle, just a warm press of his lips against hers that lasted maybe 3 seconds before she pulled back. But those 3 seconds rewired Cass's entire brain. He stared at her, eyes stunned, his lips still tingling. You, okay, that was worth the biohazard risk," Naomi admitted, a slight flush coloring her cheeks. "But I am brushing my teeth before we do that again. Non-negotiable." "Deal." Cass was grinning like an idiot and couldn't seem to stop. "I'll have Henderson bring supplies. Toothbrush, toothpaste, maybe a small flamethrower." "I've been wanting to do that for 2 weeks," Naomi said, ignoring his joke. She didn't look away from his eyes. "Ever since you started reading those architecture books in here and explaining your design theories to my supposedly unconscious self. You have no idea how hard it was to keep my heart rate steady while you went on about sustainable building practices and the importance of green spaces in urban design." Cass blinked. "You liked my theories?" "I loved your theories." Her eyes were bright with excitement now, her voice animated in a way he'd never heard before. "You see buildings the same way I do, not just as structures, but as living spaces that affect the people inside them. The way you talked about natural light and airflow and community integration." She shook her head. "Before the accident, that I was designing a new Kensington resort in Austin. Sustainable luxury, solar panels, rainwater collection, native landscaping, the whole thing. Everyone said it was too expensive, too complicated, not worth the investment." She paused, her gaze softening. "But you would have understood." "You were designing resorts?" Cass asked, still trying to catch up. His brain was running about 30 seconds behind, stuck somewhere between "she kissed me" and "she actually listened to my architecture rants and she made a joke about her own breath, and somehow that made me love her more." "I was doing everything," Naomi said. And for the first time, Cass heard frustration bleeding through, sharp and bitter beneath her composed exterior. "Running operations, overseeing expansions, modernizing our practices. My grandfather was grooming me to take over as CEO. I was going to be the first woman to run Kensington hotels." Her jaw tightened. "And Dominic couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand that the company was going to a woman. Couldn't stand that I was better at it than he'd ever be. She looked down at her hands, then back up at Cass. So, he decided to remove me from the equation. Cass's voice was low. By messing with your car. By cutting my brake lines and running me off the road on a rainy night, Naomi confirmed. Her voice had gone cold now, flat and hard, like steel. He thought I'd die in the crash. When I didn't, he waited for the coma to finish the job. And when that took too long, she met his eyes. He started getting desperate. Cass felt rage building in his chest. We need to tell your granddaddy, tell the police. Get Dominic arrested. With what evidence? Naomi challenged. A conversation I heard while pretending to be unconscious? That wouldn't hold up for 5 minutes in court. Dominic would claim I was delusional, that the brain injury affected my memory, that I'm making accusations because I'm confused or attention-seeking or whatever other excuse his lawyers come up with. She shook her head. No, I need real proof. Financial records showing he's been embezzling, which I know he has been. I just need to access the accounts to prove it. Or communication with whoever he hired to tamper with my car. Something concrete that he can't explain away. How long is that going to take? I don't know, Naomi admitted. Could be days, could be weeks. That's why I need to stay asleep a little longer. Let Dominic think he's safe. We'd let him get comfortable and sloppy. Cass shook his head firmly. No, absolutely not. You've been lying in that bed for 5 weeks while he walks around free. While he plots God knows what. I aren't letting you put yourself at risk anymore. It's not your decision to make, Naomi said, her voice taking on an edge. This is my life, my company, my revenge. You're my wife, Cass shot back. Real or fake, that paper says I'm supposed to protect you. And I ain't doing my job if I let you keep pretending while Dominic's out there planning something. They stared at each other, both stubborn, both refusing to back down. Finally, Naomi's expression softened slightly. You really meant that promise, didn't you? About protecting me. Every word. Even though you were just supposed to be playing a role? I stopped playing a role about 2 days in, Cass said honestly. Maybe sooner. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, this stopped being fake for me. Naomi reached up and touched his face gently. It stopped being fake for me about the time you brought your mother here. When I heard her thank me, heard how much she loves you, heard you promise her you'd take care of me. That's when I knew. You weren't like anyone else in my world. You were real. So what do we do? Cass asked. How do we prove Dominic's guilty and keep you safe at the same time? Naomi was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then her eyes lit up. We set a trap, she said slowly. Dominic thinks I'm still unconscious. Thinks he has all the time in the world. What if we give him a reason to panic? A reason to act rashly and make mistakes? How? You're going to tell my grandfather that I moved, Naomi said. Tell him my hand squeezed yours. Tell him the doctors need to reevaluate my condition. Make it seem like I might be waking up soon. Won't that make Dominic try something faster? Exactly, Naomi said with a dangerous smile. If Dominic thinks I'm about to wake up and potentially remember what happened, he'll have to act. And when he does, we'll be ready. We'll catch him in the act. That's risky. Living is risky, Naomi countered. I'm tired of hiding, tired of waiting. I want my life back, Cass. I want to walk in the sunshine. I want to run my company. I want to... She paused, something vulnerable crossing her face. I want to get to know my husband for real, not through one-sided conversations while I pretend to sleep. Cass felt his heart do something complicated in his chest. You really want that? Want to know me? I already know you, Naomi said softly. I know you're kind and loyal and self-sacrificing to a fault. I know you love your mother more than anything. I know you see beauty in buildings and believe in second chances. I know you think you're not good enough for people like me, but you're wrong. You're better than all of us. Better than this whole poisonous family combined. I'm a trash picker who couldn't even keep a roof over his own head, Cass said roughly. How is that better? You're a survivor who never lost his humanity, Naomi corrected. You could have become bitter, cruel, angry at the world. But you didn't. You stayed kind. That takes more strength than anything money can buy. Before Cass could respond, they heard footsteps in the hallway. The night nurse was arriving for her shift. Get back in your position, Cass said urgently. Quick. Naomi moved fast, arranging herself exactly as she'd been. By the time the night nurse, a different woman than usual, younger, less friendly looking, opened the door, Naomi looked perfectly unconscious again. Mr. Miller, the nurse said coolly. It's late. You should let Mrs. Miller rest. Mrs. Miller? Cass repeated. That's her legal name now, the nurse said with barely concealed disdain, whether she knows it or not. Cass wanted to argue, wanted to defend Naomi against the judgment in the nurse's voice. But Naomi had closed her eyes again, playing her part. Yeah, he said instead. Yeah, you're right. Good night. He left, but not before catching the tiniest smile on Naomi's supposedly unconscious face. The next morning, Cass found Lawrence in his study, reviewing what looked like financial reports. The older man looked up when Cass knocked on the open door. Cass, Lawrence said warmly. Come in. How's your mother doing? Real good, sir. Lawrence, the doctors say she's responding better than they hoped. Cass stepped inside, suddenly nervous about what he was about to do. But I actually need to talk to you about Naomi. Lawrence's expression sharpened immediately. What about her? Is something wrong? Maybe the opposite, Cass said carefully. Last night, when I was sitting with her, I was holding her hand, just talking to her like I do, and I felt... He paused for effect. I felt her squeeze my hand. Just a little. But it was deliberate. I'm sure of it. Lawrence stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. She moved? You're certain? Yes, sir. I know it sounds crazy, but I know what I felt. It wasn't just a muscle spasm. She squeezed my hand. Lawrence was already pulling out his phone. I'm calling her medical team. We need to do a full evaluation. If she's regaining consciousness, if there's any chance she might wake up. He trailed off, emotion thick in his voice. I didn't want to get your hopes up if I was wrong, Cass said. But I thought you should know. You did the right thing, Lawrence said, gripping Cass's shoulder. Thank you, son. Thank you for paying attention, for caring enough to notice. Cass felt guilt twist in his stomach. He was lying to this man who'd been nothing but kind to him. But it was for a good reason, for Naomi's safety. At least, he hoped it was. News of Naomi's possible awakening spread through the household like wildfire. By that afternoon, doctors were running tests, nurses were monitoring her more closely, and Lawrence was barely leaving her bedside. And Dominic showed up within hours. Cass was in Naomi's room when Dominic burst through the door, his expensive suit slightly disheveled, his eyes wild. Is it true? Dominic demanded, looking at Lawrence. Is she waking up? The doctors aren't certain yet, Lawrence said calmly, though Cass could see the tension in his shoulders. But there's been increased brain activity, small movements. It's possible. Dominic's face went through several expressions, shock, fear, calculation, before settling on fake concern. That's wonderful news, he said, but his voice was too tight, too controlled. Has she shown any signs of awareness, memory, recognition? Not yet, Lawrence said, but the doctors are hopeful. Cass watched Dominic carefully, watched the way his hands clenched and unclenched, the way his eyes kept darting to Naomi's still form, the way sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool temperature. Dominic was panicking. Good. Well, Dominic said after a too long pause, I should let you rest. This must be exhausting for you, Uncle Lawrence. If you need anything, anything at all, please call me." He left quickly, practically running from the room. Lawrence turned to Cass with sharp eyes. "Did you see that?" "See what?" Dominic's reaction. He wasn't happy about this news. He was afraid. Lawrence's jaw clenched. "I've suspected for months that Dominic had something to do with Naomi's accident. But I couldn't prove it. Couldn't even voice the suspicion without sounding like a paranoid old man." Cass made a decision. "What if I told you Naomi's been awake for a month?" Lawrence froze. "What?" "She woke up 5 weeks ago," Cass said quietly, moving closer so they couldn't be overheard. "She's been pretending, listening, gathering information. She heard Dominic on the phone talking about waiting for her to pass away. She knows he caused the accident. She just doesn't have proof yet." Lawrence's eyes went wide. Then he looked at the bed where Naomi lay. "She's awake right now, isn't she?" he asked softly. In the bed, Naomi's eyes opened. She looked at her grandfather with an expression full of love and pain. "Hi, grandfather," she said, her voice rough. "Sorry for the deception." Lawrence's face crumpled. He rushed to her bedside, taking her hands in his, tears streaming down his face. "My girl," he choked out. "My beautiful, brilliant girl. You're back." "I'm back," Naomi confirmed, her own eyes wet. "And I'm ready to fight, but I need your help, both of you." For the next hour, the three of them planned. Naomi explained what she'd heard, what she suspected, what she needed to prove Dominic's guilt. Lawrence provided information about the company finances, about Dominic's gambling debts, about suspicious transactions he'd noticed but couldn't quite connect. "He's been embezzling for at least a year," Lawrence said grimly. "Small amounts at first, then increasingly larger sums. I started an internal investigation 6 months ago, but then you had your accident. And everything got complicated." "The timing wasn't coincidence," Naomi said. "He probably knew you were getting close to discovering the embezzlement. Getting rid of me was supposed to solve 2 problems. Give him access to the inheritance and stop the investigation." "So how do we catch him?" Cass asked. Naomi's smile was pure calculation. "We give him exactly what he wants. We let him think I'm waking up with no memory of the accident, that I'm confused, vulnerable, easy to manipulate, and we wait for him to make his move." "What kind of move?" Lawrence asked warily. "He'll try to finish what he started," Naomi said flatly. "He'll try to eliminate me before I can remember anything or take control of the company, and when he does, we'll have security cameras recording every moment. We'll have proof." "Absolutely not," Cass said immediately. "We're not using you as bait. We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice," Cass interrupted. "And I ain't letting you put yourself in danger. There's got to be another way." "Like what?" Naomi challenged. "Asking him nicely to confess? Hoping he makes a mistake on his own? Dominic is smart and he's desperate. The only way to catch him is to force his hand." "Then we force his hand some other way," Cass insisted. "Set him up with fake financial records or something. Plant evidence. I don't know, but I ain't using you as bait." "It's not your decision." "You're my wife." Cass's voice rose. "Real or fake, that means something to me. That means I protect you, even if it's from your own stubborn self." "Don't you dare call me stubborn." "Children," Lawrence interrupted, and despite the seriousness of the situation, there was amusement in his voice. "You sound like you've been married for years instead of weeks." Both Naomi and Cass stopped arguing and looked at him. "Cass is right that we can't put you at unnecessary risk," Lawrence continued. "But Naomi is also right that we need to force Dominic to act. So we compromise. We set the trap, but we make absolutely certain you're protected. Security everywhere. Cameras everywhere. At the first sign of actual danger, we pull you out." "I can live with that," Cass said reluctantly. "Fine," Naomi agreed. "But I'm not staying in this bed anymore. I've been lying down for 2 years. I want to walk around. I want to live again." "Agreed," Lawrence said. We'll announce that you've woken up tomorrow, that you're weak but recovering, that you have some memory loss from the accident. That part is important. Dominic needs to think you don't remember what happened. And then? Naomi asked. Then we watch him very carefully, Lawrence said grimly. And we wait. Drop a comment and tell me if you think Naomi and Cass can actually pull this off. And listen, hit that subscribe button right now because we're about to get into the most intense part of this story. The announcement of Naomi's awakening sent shockwaves through Dallas high society. Within hours, news outlets were reporting on the miracle recovery of the Kensington heiress. Social media exploded with speculation, well wishes, and more than a little gossip about the mysterious husband she'd acquired while unconscious. Cass watched it all unfold from Naomi's room, where she was finally, officially awake. Doctors came and went, running tests, expressing amazement at her recovery. Nurses who'd cared for her cried happy tears. And through it all, Naomi played her part perfectly. Weak, but grateful. Confused about the accident. Seemingly unable to remember the weeks leading up to it. "I don't understand," she said to one doctor, her voice trembling just right. "Why can't I remember? What happened to me?" "Memory loss after traumatic brain injury is very common," the doctor assured her. "The memories may return with time, or they may be gone permanently. We just can't predict these things." When the doctors finally left them alone, just Naomi, Cass, and Lawrence, Naomi dropped the act. "How was that?" she asked. "Terrifyingly convincing," Cass said. "You should be an actress." "I've been acting my entire life," Naomi said with a slight edge. "Playing the perfect granddaughter, the brilliant heiress, the woman who has it all together. This is just another role." "Except this one could get you hurt," Cass reminded her. Before Naomi could respond, there was a knock at the door. Dominic entered, carrying an enormous bouquet of flowers and wearing an expression of exaggerated concern. "Naomi," he said, his voice dripping with fake warmth. "Thank God you're awake. We've all been so worried." Naomi looked at him with carefully crafted confusion. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" Dominic's eyes flickered, just for a second, with something that might have been satisfaction. "I'm your cousin, Dominic," he said, setting the flowers down. "We grew up together. I've been visiting you every week since the accident, praying for your recovery." Lies. All lies. Cass had been tracking the visitor logs. Dominic had visited exactly 3 times in 2 years, and each visit lasted less than 10 minutes. "I'm sorry," Naomi said, her voice small. "I don't remember. The doctors say I have memory loss. I don't remember the accident or anything before it." "Nothing at all?" Dominic asked, and he was trying to hide it, but there was hope in his voice. "Nothing," Naomi confirmed. "It's all just blank. They said it might come back, but they're not sure." Dominic's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Well, don't worry about it. The important thing is you're awake and recovering, and everything else will work itself out." He stayed for exactly 15 minutes, asking careful questions about what she did and didn't remember, offering to help with anything she needed, playing the devoted cousin. The moment he left, Naomi's expression hardened. "He's pleased," she said. "Did you see? He's actually happy I don't remember." "Because it means you can't identify him as the one who caused your accident," Lawrence said grimly. "Which means he thinks he's safe," Naomi continued. "But he'll still be worried about the company, about me taking control once I'm recovered." "So what's his next move?" Cass asked. Naomi thought for a moment. "He'll try to convince grandfather to delay my return to the company. Claim I'm too weak, too confused, need more recovery time. And while everyone's focused on my health, he'll try to secure his position. Maybe even try to get grandfather to name him temporary CEO. That's not happening," Lawrence said firmly. "But we should let him think it might," Naomi said. "Let him think he's winning. Let him get comfortable." "How long do we keep this up?" Cass asked. Not long, Naomi said. A few days at most. Dominic won't wait. He can't afford to. The internal investigation into the embezzlement is still ongoing. If I'm back and aware, I'll have access to those files. He knows his time is running out. She was right. 2 days later, things started happening fast. Cass was in the library, actually reading one of the architecture books he'd been pretending to study, when Henderson found him. Mr. Miller, the butler said, and his usual disdain softened slightly. Ever since Naomi had woken up and made it very clear that Cass was to be treated with respect, the staff had adjusted their attitudes. There's a man here to see you. He claims it's urgent. What man? He says he's from the hospital. About your mother. Cass's blood went cold. He dropped the book and ran to the front entrance, where a man in scrubs stood waiting. Young guy, maybe 30, with nervous eyes and a badge that said Methodist Dallas Medical Center. Mr. Miller? The man said. I'm sorry to show up unannounced, but there's been a complication with your mother's treatment. The doctors need you to come to the hospital right away to sign some forms. Insurance issue. Everything in Cass's gut screamed that something was wrong. His mom's treatment was fully paid for. There shouldn't be any insurance issues. But what if there was? What if something had gone wrong and they really did need him? I'll drive you, Henderson offered, reading the panic on Cass's face. No, the man in scrubs said quickly. I have a car right outside. It'll be faster. Your mother is asking for you. That decided it. If his mom was asking for him, he had to go. Let me tell Naomi. There's no time, the man insisted. Please, Mr. Miller, it's urgent. Cass hesitated for one more second, then made a decision he'd regret. All right, let's go. He followed the man outside to a black sedan, got in the passenger seat. The man got in the driver's side and started the engine. They'd barely pulled away from the curb when Cass realized his mistake. The man wasn't heading toward the hospital. He was heading away from it. Where are you going? Cass demanded. The hospital's the other direction. There's been a change of plans, the man said, and his voice was different now. Harder. Cold. He pulled a weapon from the center console. Cass's world stopped. Don't do anything stupid, the man said. My employer just wants to talk to you. Convince you that leaving Dallas would be in your best interest. You cooperate, nobody gets hurt. You fight, and your mother's next chemotherapy session gets contaminated with something that'll look like a treatment complication. Understand? Cass understood perfectly. Dominic had made his move, and Cass had walked right into it. Back at the penthouse, Naomi was doing physical therapy with a nurse when Henderson knocked urgently on her door. Miss Naomi, he said, his usual composure cracked. It's Cass. He left with a man claiming to be from the hospital. But I called Methodist to verify, and they have no record of sending anyone. And Cass is not answering his phone. Naomi's heart stopped. How long ago? She demanded. 10 minutes, maybe 15. Naomi was already moving, grabbing her phone, pulling up the tracking app she'd secretly installed on Cass's phone 3 days ago. She'd felt guilty about it at the time, invasion of privacy, but something had told her to be prepared. The app showed Cass's location moving fast toward the warehouse district on the south side of Dallas. Call grandfather, Naomi said, her voice deadly calm. Tell him to get security and meet me at these coordinates, and call the police. Miss Naomi, you can't. He took my husband, Naomi said, and her eyes were blazing. Dominic took Cass to get to me. And I swear to God, if he hurts him, there won't be enough lawyers in Texas to save Dominic from what I'll do. She was already heading for the door, grabbing car keys from the hook in the hallway. Miss Naomi, you're still recovering? I'm done recovering, Naomi said, and I'm done waiting. Henderson, make those calls, now. She ran. Cass was dragged into an abandoned warehouse that smelled like rust and old oil. The man with the weapon, clearly hired muscle, not someone with any personal stake in this, shoved him into a metal chair and zip-tied his hands behind his back. Dominic's on his way, the man said. Sit tight. Don't try anything heroic. He moved to the far side of the warehouse, making a phone call in a low voice. Cass tested the zip ties. Too tight. He wasn't getting out of these without help. His phone was in his pocket, but with his hands bound, he couldn't reach it. Think, he commanded himself. Think. But all he could think about was Naomi. About how she'd kissed him. About how she'd said she wanted to know him for real. About how he'd promised to protect her. And now he'd walked into a trap like an idiot. The warehouse door opened. Dominic Kensington walked in, looking less polished than usual. His suit jacket was gone. His tie was loose. His hair was messed up. He looked like a man on the edge. Cass Miller, Dominic said, his voice cold. The trash picker who ruined everything. I didn't ruin nothing, Cass said. You did that all by yourself. You really don't get it, do you? He said quietly. This was never about you. The plan was simple. Naomi stays unconscious. Eventually she passes. I'm no husband in the picture. No complications. Everything moves exactly where it's supposed to move. His eyes darkened. But then my dear uncle decided to get creative. He dragged you in from whatever alley you were sleeping in and handed you a ring like you suddenly mattered. Cass's jaw tightened. So now, Dominic went on, stepping closer. Even if Naomi dies, everything doesn't automatically fall into my hands anymore. There's paperwork, legal delays, a grieving husband who suddenly has rights. He let out a humorless laugh. And I hate delays. Cass finally spoke. So kidnapping me solves all that? Dominic's smile widened. It simplifies things, he said. If you disappear before anything happens to Naomi, then the path clears again. Clean, quiet, efficient. Cass held his gaze steadily. Honest, you're scared she might not stay helpless forever. A flash of irritation crossed Dominic's face. You talk too much, he snapped. Dominic's expression shifted from rage to calculation. He nodded to the hired man. Get rid of him. Make it look like an accident. Drug deal's gone wrong or something. Nobody will question a homeless guy getting caught up in something bad. The hired man pulled out his weapon again. Cass's heart hammered, but he kept his voice steady. You really gonna add ending someone to your list of crimes? That's a whole different level, Dominic. That's something you can't come back from. I'm already past the point of coming back, Dominic said. I tried to eliminate Naomi, failed. Now I'll eliminate you, and then I'll find a way to finish what I started with her. Like Uncle Lawrence can't protect her forever. You're wrong about that. The voice came from the warehouse entrance. Everyone turned to see Naomi standing there, phone in hand, very obviously recording. Hi, Dominic, she said, her voice deadly calm. Thanks for the confession. Really saved me a lot of legal paperwork. Dominic's face went white. Naomi, every word you just said is on video, Naomi continued, walking into the warehouse like she owned it. Behind her, Cass could see movement. Security, police, Lawrence. Attempting to end Cass. Admitting to trying to eliminate me. Planning to finish what you started. That's all recorded. Uploaded to the cloud. Sent to my lawyers. You're done, Dominic. The hired man looked between Dominic and Naomi, clearly doing math about whether his paycheck was worth staying for this. But he made a fast decision and wanted to run, but was caught by the police. Dominic stood frozen, his entire world collapsing around him. You can't. This isn't. It's over, Lawrence said, stepping into the warehouse with 2 police officers behind him. Dominic Kensington, you're under arrest for attempted homicide, kidnapping, embezzlement, and about 15 other charges we'll add once the lawyers get involved. Dominic tried to run. He made it about 5 steps before security tackled him. And through all of it, Naomi ran straight to Cass, pulling a knife from God knows where and cutting through his zip ties. Are you okay? She demanded, her hands running over him, checking for injuries. Did he hurt you? I swear to God, if he hurt you... I'm fine, Cass said, standing up and immediately pulling her into his arms. I'm fine. But you shouldn't have come. He could have hurt you. He took you. Naomi said fiercely, looking up at him with blazing eyes. He took you, and I was not about to let that stand. Nobody takes what's mine. Yours? Cass repeated. Mine, Naomi confirmed. You're my husband, Cass Miller. Real or fake, that means something to me, too. That means I protect you, even if it's from your own heroic self. Cass couldn't help it. He laughed. Actually laughed, relief and joy and adrenaline all mixing together. You're using my own words against me, he said. Learned from the best, Naomi shot back. Then he kissed her. Not a soft, brief kiss like before. This one was fierce and claiming and full of promise, and Naomi kissed him back with everything she had. 3 months later, Cass stood in front of a mirror in a private room at the Kensington Grand Hotel in downtown Dallas, adjusting his tie for the 100th time. You look fine, his mom said from her chair by the window. Martha was healthy now, the cancer in full remission, her hair grown back, color in her cheeks, life in her eyes. Stop fussing. I'm getting married, Cass said. For real this time. I'm allowed to fuss. You're already married, Martha reminded him with a smile. That was a piece of paper in a courthouse, Cass said. This is different. This is real. There was a knock at the door. Lawrence entered, looking distinguished in his tuxedo. Ready, son? He asked. As I'll ever be. Lawrence clapped him on the shoulder. For what it's worth, I knew you were the right choice from the moment I saw you sorting through that trash with dignity. I knew you were exactly the kind of man my granddaughter needed. Even though I had nothing to offer her? You had everything to offer her, Lawrence corrected. Loyalty, kindness, real love, everything money can't buy. He paused. And speaking of money, the company shareholders voted yesterday. They want you on the board of directors. Naomi's been showing them your resort designs, and they're very impressed. Cass's jaw dropped. I don't have the education. You have the vision, Lawrence said. And you have Naomi's trust. That's all that matters. Think about it. No pressure. 20 minutes later, and Cass stood at an altar in the hotel's rooftop garden, surrounded by flowers and lights, and about 200 guests from Dallas high society who'd come to see the trash picker who married the heiress actually get his fairy tale ending. Let them look, Cass thought. Let them judge. None of it matters. The music started, and Naomi appeared. She was wearing a wedding dress crafted from layers of delicate silk and hand-stitched crystals that caught the light with every movement. But that wasn't what took his breath away. It was her smile, genuine and bright and full of joy. She walked down the aisle, no one giving her away, because as she'd said firmly, I'm not property to be transferred. And when she reached him, she took his hands. Hi, husband, she whispered. Hi, wife, he whispered back. The ceremony was beautiful, traditional in some ways, completely unique in others. They'd written their own vows. When it was Cass's turn, he looked into Naomi's eyes and said, I promise to never stop seeing you. Really seeing you. Not the heiress or the CEO or the brilliant businesswoman, though you're all of those things. I promise to see the woman who loves architecture and old jazz and stays up too late reading. The woman who's fierce and stubborn and brave. The woman I fell in love with while she was pretending to sleep. I promise to protect you, respect you, and challenge you. I promise to build a life with you that we design together. And I promise to love you every day for the rest of my life. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Naomi's turn. I promise to never take you for granted. To remember that you chose me when you had every reason not to. That you saw value in me even when I was unconscious and couldn't give you anything back. I promise to fight beside you, not behind you. To build you up when the world tries to tear you down. To remind you that you're extraordinary even when you forget. I promise to love you not despite where you came from, but because of who you became. and I promised to spend every day proving that marrying you was the best decision my grandfather ever made for me. The officiant barely got through the "you may kiss the bride" part before they were already kissing. The reception was everything. Dancing and laughter and joy. Martha cried happy tears all night. Lawrence gave a toast about second chances and finding love in unexpected places. And when Cass and Naomi finally snuck away from the party to a private balcony, looking out at the Dallas skyline together, Naomi leaned into him. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking about a dumpster behind Marco's steakhouse," Cass said. "About how I was digging through trash, hopeless and hungry, and then this stranger showed up and offered me a life I couldn't even imagine. And I'm thinking about how that moment changed everything." "Do you regret any of it?" Naomi asked quietly. "The fake marriage? The pretending? All of it?" "Not even for a second," Cass said firmly. "Every moment led me here, led me to you. How could I regret that?" Naomi smiled. "Good answer." "I've been practicing," Cass teased. "I've noticed." She turned to face him fully. "So, husband, now that we're married for real, what's next?" "Well," Cass said, "I was thinking we could design that Austin resort together. The sustainable one you told me about. Make it everything you envisioned." "Our first project as a team," Naomi said, her eyes lighting up. "First of many," Cass agreed. "We've got the rest of our lives to build things together. Buildings, a company, a family eventually. Whatever we want." "I want all of it," Naomi said, "with you." "Then that's what we'll do." They kissed again, silhouetted against the Dallas skyline. Two people from completely different worlds who'd found each other in the most unlikely way possible. And somewhere in the city below, in a shelter on West Madison Street, a young man who'd lost everything sat down for dinner, wondering if tomorrow would be better. It would be. Because 3 days later, Cass and Naomi would launch the Miller Kensington Foundation. Dedicated to helping homeless individuals get job training, housing, and medical care. That young man in the shelter would be their first success story, but he wouldn't be their last. And there you have it, family. From a dumpster to a dynasty. From homeless and hopeless to married and building an empire. Cass and Naomi proved that love doesn't care about your bank account, your address, or your circumstances. All that matters is who you are on the inside. If this story touched your heart, if you're sitting there with tears in your eyes and joy in your soul, drop a comment right now. Tell me what your favorite moment was. And listen, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell because we've got more incredible stories coming your way. Stories about love conquering all. Stories about second chances. Stories about people who refuse to let their circumstances define them. Your circumstances don't define you. Your choices do. So choose love. Choose kindness. Choose to see the value in people that society overlooks. I'll see you in the next one. Stay blessed, stay loved, and never forget, you are worthy of your own fairy tale. Peace.